So guys, for those of you who've been sending me the love, sending me the well wishes, I appreciate you guys. I want to share a great big thank you to all you guys as well. So first and foremost, a great big welcome to everyone who's joining us. If you're brand new and you've never met me before, I'm Samuel Kimwin. I'm going to be your tour guide throughout this training session as we talk specifically today about how to maximize your revenue and returns from property investing, literally from small investments. So today's session is going to be an extremely valuable session. And again, once again, a great big thank you to all of you guys who have already sent me all of the love, all of the kind words, and all of the well wishes as it pertains to our newest addition to the family. Now, without further ado, let's jump straight in to what we've got to share with you guys, because we've got a lot to share and we don't have that much time. Now, for those of you who were with us last time, which wasn't effectively last week, because last week we had the baby, the session before we spoke about how to go from tent to temple in your property investing. And I shared with you guys some crucial property investing strategies and keys, predominantly some principles that you can literally glean from the Bible, right? And we were taking that from 2 Samuel, the second book of Samuel, chapter 7, specifically verse 2. And for those of you who missed that, feel free, you can go catch the replay. For anyone who missed that, you can go and catch the replay of that right here, okay? And when I say right here, that means wherever you're watching this. So if you're watching this in Facebook, if you're one of those people in our private Facebook group, the Impact Investing Facebook group, feel free to go and scroll through and you will see from tent to temple, which was the last session that we delivered. If you are tuning into this on YouTube, then again, you can literally go and check the previous live stream videos and you will be able to find from tent to temple how to literally elevate, scale up your property investment in short to no time, basically following the principles and precepts that I shared with you guys in that session. Now, in today's session, we're going to be talking about not exactly scaling up your portfolio, but we're going to be talking about something that's essential to everyone, no matter what level you're at in property. If you're someone who's literally just living in a home with dreams of going into property investment, but you don't know how to actually do it, or if you're someone who's actually got to a place where you've said to yourself, no, you know what, I'm not just gonna stay where I am, but you've already been investing, you've already been taking steps, you've already done 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 investments, you've already moved forward in your property investment journey. I want to congratulate you, because this session you're in the right place at the right time in the right space, where we're going to be sharing with you exactly how you can utilize what I call the widow's oil, the literal methodology that we find from the scripture, a principle that's going to be useful for you to elevate your investment process. If you're looking forward to that, just write in the chat, I am. If you're looking forward to that, just let me know that I am, and I'm going to be looking forward to actually sharing this value with you guys as well. Now, before we go into today's specific session, I want to literally share what I call our community success story, right? And our community success story for today's session that I want to share with you is about Dwayne Patrick. And some of you know Dwayne because he's literally been jumping into every single one of these sessions as we've been running them. And I want to congratulate Dwayne. So a big congratulations to Dwayne. Let's run the round of applause for him, which is right here. Let's go. All right. Now, the reason I want to run the congratulations, the round of applause for Dwayne is quite simply because those of you who know, and those of you who don't know. Now, yes, some time ago, Dwayne decided to join our 5-day cash flow creation challenge, all right? And when he joined our cash flow challenge week, Dwayne was able to take away the principles, the precepts, the training, the learning that we gave, and he was able to utilize that, having gone from never having invested in property ever before, never really even having an interest in property, to going on our 5-day cash flow week and transforming his situation to being able to acquire multiple properties. I believe he secured 4 properties soon after he was on our cash flow week. Now, why is that so important? This is why it's important. The revenue that Dwayne was able to take away for himself as an individual from following the strategies we gave in the cash flow week were able to net him £1,733 and 33 pence, right, in revenue on a monthly basis, right? And these are from properties he didn't even own, properties he never ever bought, okay? And this is because he was following the principles that we literally teach. And that is a clear example of what I taught you guys in the last session of how to go from tent to temple, of how to literally start to elevate as long as you don't hesitate. Okay, so a great big congratulations to Dwayne. And for those of you who are in the house, if you're joining us live, feel free to let us know in the chat by literally saying congratulations to Dwayne, right? Because I'm one of those people who cultivate a community and a culture of congratulations. I think it's super important to congratulate people on their wins, because what that literally does is not only does it help them understand that what they've done is great and they should keep doing it, but it also encourages us and infuses us to keep going on the exact same path, and it opens up the portals and the doorways for us to succeed as well. So a great big congratulations to Dwayne and Dwayne's team, Dwayne's family, all of those involved in supporting him to make sure he moves further faster in his property investment journey. So that was Dwayne, right? Now, the second reason I want to kind of congratulate Dwayne, I'll literally throw the handshake in there again. Right? The second reason I want to kind of congratulate Dwayne is simply because Dwayne is one of those people who, those of you who have been jumping on, who've been going on to our lives have seen, who is adamant and persistent in the development of his training and learning. Okay, so he shows up, he takes the notes. Okay, so guys, I want to encourage you to do the same for the things that are important to you, for the things that you want to utilize to help you move further faster in your future. Do the same. Be someone who shows up, okay? Because you can't get from the class if you don't show for class, okay? So hopefully that helps you guys in understanding exactly the imperativeness, the importance of utilizing exactly what I'm talking about in today's session. Now, without further ado, all right, I see the time is ticking. Today's session, I'm going to be sharing with you guys what I call the widow's oil, okay? We're going to be looking specifically at the widow's oil, but not just the widow's oil. We're going to be looking at how you can maximize your returns from minimized investments, okay? If someone's looking forward to that, let me see in the comments the word max, all right? Let me see in the comments the word max. We're going to be talking about how to maximize your investments with minimum investment, right? How to maximize your returns with minimum investments, right? How to maximize what you get out with a minimum of what you invest in. So if you guys are ready for that, let me just literally see the words "I'm ready" in the chat. For those of you who are ready, let me see the words "I'm ready" in the chat, so I know you guys are ready to go. Now, in order to get started in today's session, the first thing I'm going to have to do is define a couple of simple terms. And these are terms that you're going to use going further faster in your process of property investing. So I want you to be aware of what these are, okay? Now, the first one is a maximized return. When I say a maximized return, when Samuel I Can Win is talking about a maximized return, what am I speaking about specifically? Well, the first thing I'm speaking about specifically is I want you to liken it or think of it or consider it like a tree, okay? A tree that blossoms and grows. Now, trees, those of us who know, grow in two directions. They grow downwards and they also grow upwards, okay? They go downwards in the direction of gravity and upwards in the direction of the sun, okay? And that's called phototropic and gravitropic growth, okay? Now, why is this so important? The reason it's so important is because that's the power of maximum investment. You see, when you invest somewhere, it's all fair and well if you generate some money out of that investment. Okay, if you generate some money out of that investment, that's fantastic. Why is that fantastic? The reason it's fantastic if you generate some money out of that investment is because your growth is happening in one direction. Okay, but what happens when you also generate lessons out of that investment? What happens when you also generate network out of that investment? What happens when you also are able to grow a legacy for your children and your children's children out of that investment? This is where we're now talking about maximized returns. And the reason I want to define this as we start today's session is because I want you to be thinking that. I want you to have that in mind. I want you to be aware that, listen, hold on a minute. I'm not getting into this just to make money. I'm getting into this to create a legacy. I'm getting into this to have maximized return. And this is the reason why I've put right here this particular rendition of a tree, because I want you to understand how powerful it is when you start thinking about maximized returns. When you start creating systems and sequences and putting a path in place for you to have maximized returns. Not just for you, but for your children, your children's children, and for those that are around you, in terms of your friends, family, and those you want to also enjoy the spoils and the spoils of your labor with as well. So that's the first thing, maximize return. Now let's go into the second thing. The second thing I want to define before we start breaking down today's lesson as just a precursor is what is a small investment. And as you can see, I've put a little image, or I've put images of seeds here. Now the reason I put images of seeds is because before we get a tree, we must first start with a seed. If somebody understands what I'm talking about, just write in the chat, I do. Before we can get a tree, we are going to first start with a seed. And this is crucial for us to understand in order for us to set things up appropriately. Because some of us may be searching for the tree without recognizing our seed. Okay, and I share this with people many a times in many of my coaching programs. I explain that if we live a life of greed, it means we'll eat our seed. Okay, but if we focus on our seed will give us everything we need. Okay, so you might want to write that down. If we live a life of greed, we'll end up eating our seed. But if we focus on our seed, we'll end up having from our seed everything that we need. Okay, now I usually share this with my coaching clients because I want them to understand that small keys, as many people have heard me say, open big doors. What does that mean? That means the things that you really need to achieve, the big doors, they don't actually come from focusing on big doors. They actually come from focusing on small keys. Okay, so if someone's getting some value, just write the word value, so I know this is already super helpful for you guys. Okay, so now that you guys understand that, what I want to do is I want to go deeper into today's session and start unpacking stuff so you guys can see exactly what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to jump onto the board to help you guys really see exactly what we're talking about here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into the place we're going to be reading today. I'm going to put that up here. We're going to be reading from 2 Kings, and I'm going to go specifically to chapter 4. Now, this isn't a full, deep, extended training, so I'm not going to have the time to literally go all the way through from verse 1 and give you guys the extended context. But I'm going to laser focus in on verses 3 to 4. In today's session, laser focusing in on verses 3 to 4, right? So 2 Kings chapter 4, and for those of you who don't know, I utilize principles from the Bible in order to become more profitable in my property investment journey, and I teach my clients how to do the same, right? So this is the reason why we're going to the words of the scriptures, the Bible, in order to enhance what we're doing right now, okay? And if you guys are ready for that, let me just see the word ready in the chat. If you're ready for that, let me see the word ready in the chat. Okay, let's go. So 2 Kings chapter 4, this is talking about a story of a widow, okay? And to give you some quick context, okay, this widow, let's draw this out to give you guys an example of exactly what we're talking about. This particular widow, she was married to a particular individual, okay? And in her marriage, they were able to go and, by the grace of God, have at least 2 children. Now in a moment you're going to understand why I say at least 2 children, but they were able to go and have at least 2 children, okay? And I haven't done a great job of drawing this second child's face, so let's do that, okay? Let's improve that, right? So they were able to have 2 children. Now what actually happened, which was super interesting, is this particular husband of this widow went and borrowed some collateral, okay? Went and borrowed, and after borrowing he actually passed away. He became bereaved, okay? Or she became bereaved because he passed away. So this person, he became deceased. He ceased to exist, right? And the money that they borrowed was still expected from the widow. Now, those of you who know, in those olden times, like, women didn't have revenue. They weren't working necessarily jobs, so she wouldn't have had money to pay off the debt. So what she was basically told or threatened, she was threatened that her children would potentially end up being the collateral to solve the debt. Her children would end up being effectively kidnapped, but it wouldn't be kidnapping. They'd just become indentured slaves. They become slaves to the people that the husband had borrowed money from because of the simple fact that they had not paid the debt. Okay, so if you guys understand this, let me know you understand, right? So this is a very powerful and crucial situation for this woman, because this woman has to come up with some kind of revenue ASAP. Okay? She has to come up with some kind of pounds, yen, dollars. She has to come up with some kind of collateral and revenue very, very quickly. This is why this is super important, right? And this is another reason why this is one of those great stories to really tune into and tap into the value of the principles hidden inside in order for us to understand how to move further faster in our own futures as well. So I'm going to jump straight into the middle of the story. What the woman's done is she's gone and sought out, she's gone to find a coach, okay? And some of you are going to say, Samuel, listen, I've been reading my Bible. I've never seen the word coach in there. Okay, she didn't find a coach, right? She found a prophet. She found the exact prophet that her husband used to serve. The same prophet that her husband used to work with. The same prophet that her husband used to check in with, right? So that's kind of like what we might call today a coach. So she goes and finds this coach and starts having a conversation with him. And in 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 3 to 4, where we're jumping in the middle of that conversation. So watch what happens. Verse 3. So then he said, so she's told the coach the problem, and listen to what he said. Then he said, go and borrow for yourself the vessels abroad of all your neighbors. even empty vessels borrow not a few. I can't even emphasize that enough times, right? Even empty vessels borrow not a few. So he's told her, go out there, go start borrowing, borrow from the people that you know, go borrow from your neighbors, and don't borrow scarcely, don't borrow sparsely, don't borrow minimum, okay? You may have minimum, but when you go borrow, when you go grab something, go grab with a level of maximum. Hopefully you're seeing this. Let's go deeper. Verse 3, borrow not a few. That was the end. Verse 4, and when you are coming, so that means when you come back, you shall shut the door upon yourself and upon your sons. And this is why I say she had at least 2 sons, because it says upon thy sons, not thy son, right? So he says, when you get back from borrowing all of these vessels from all of your neighbors, shut the door, close the door to the outside world, close the door to the noise, close the door to the drama and trauma going on in the world, and focus, right? Watch this. What does he tell her to focus on? Watch this. And you shall pour out into all those vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. Okay, now I'm going to read verse 5. I didn't write up there, but I'm going to read verse 5 to give you some even deeper context as well. It goes on in verse 5 and says, so she went from him and shut the door upon her and upon her son. So she followed every single word the coach said to a T. And watch this. Who brought the vessels to her and she poured out. Okay, so that's another crucial aspect I want to bring up, because a lot of the time, one of the things I've noticed over the years, especially when I used to pay a lot of money to do a lot of different courses with a lot of coaches, I would identify other students who pay to be on the same course, but they don't follow the same course. Okay, and one of the things I teach people is to learn how to focus. Now, focus is a paramount thing, because I define focus. I heard this once and I loved it. Focus, I define as follow one course. There you go. Thank God it's not a spelling test. Until successful. Okay? That's how I define focus. And I encourage people to think about focus like this. It's following one course until successful. It's not following one thing and then saying, oh, I'm out of here. Hey, this didn't work for me. Oh, it worked for them, but it didn't work for me. No, that's not being focused, right? And this is the beautiful thing about the widow. When we see this story of the widow's oil in 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 3 to 4, she follows the course until successful. She does what the coach has advised her to do, okay? So I want you to make a declaration today in today's session. And I want your declaration, whether it be a mantra that you say to yourself right now out loud, or whether it be something you're bold enough to throw in the comments, I want you to say, I will be focused. I will be focused. Okay? It's a simple statement. And here's the funniest thing. Some of you might be tuned in today and not make the statement. You might not just say that simple line, I will be focused. Well, guess what? You're being conned out of your own focus. Right? It's so simple. Just to make a simple declaration to yourself. I will be focused. Okay? That's my encouragement to you. So this woman got focused. She got focused on what her coach, hashtag the prophet, she got focused on what the prophet, hashtag the coach, said to her, and she did it, right? Now, why is this important? This is why it's important. This starts to reveal to us the exact process of what happens. And those of you who know this story, you're going to say, wow, Samuel, I saw that without seeing that, and now I see that, so I see the principle. So let's start breaking it down, okay? So she starts off with an initial container of oil. She starts off with her own initial container of oil. Those of you who know the story, you know that prior to where I read, prior to verse 3, she talks about she only has a little bit of oil, okay? Now, this oil she starts off with, let's put a light blue on this, right? This oil she starts off with, we can liken this to what we might call an initial investment. Okay? So when I've said to you today, we're going to talk about how you can get maximum returns from a small investment. This was her small investment. It was the little oil she started with, okay? But something amazing happened, okay? What was amazing that happened is from her small investment, she was able to go borrow these vessels that the prophet told her to borrow. And from borrowing these vessels, she was able to literally, I'm going to say it like this, right? Because he says, pour the oil. And as you pour the oil, you're going to fill up the jars and then keep on pouring. So her initial investment was able to help her make a reinvestment. And in this case, we'll call this reinvestment number 1. Okay? If you guys are getting this, just throw the number 1 in the chat, or maybe just say where you are, number 1. Okay? So let's do this in another color. So she was able to develop her investment from her initial investment into what we'll call reinvestment number one. Okay, and this is super powerful. But the prophet didn't just say, listen, pour the oil into another container and then stop there. He said, when it gets full, set it aside. So as you can see, reinvestment number one is full. So what does she do? She will go to the next jar that she's been able to acquire from those people she borrowed from. And as she goes to the next jar she was able to acquire, what do you think is going to happen? She now is able to do what we call reinvestment number two. Now what's beautiful about this is she's doing all of these investments and these reinvestments from her initial investment. From what we call a small investment, she's able to start making what I might see or call a tall investment. Okay? And this is literally what she's done. She's gone from an initial investment to reinvestment number one to reinvestment number two. Let's make this one green. Okay? So she's leveling up literally by using this particular approach that the prophet has told her to do. Okay, so she's gone from initial investment to reinvestment number one. She's gone from reinvestment number one to reinvestment number two. She's just filling up these jars. Now, here's a beautiful thing. You know the system, you know the pattern, you know the sequence. He said, and when it's full, go and do the next one. Go and do the next one. So what would that mean? That would mean from reinvestment number two, we know that she's going to be making reinvestment number three. So this is going to continue on. Let's do this in blue. This is going to continue on. She is expanding. She is walking away with what we might call now maximum returns. Okay, look at the jars of oil now, right? She's now tapping into what we might call maximum returns, but she originally started with what we can all see was what I'd call a small investment. So having a small investment, being in a place right now in your life where you say, you know, I've only got this little thing here. I've only got a small investment. Guys, I'm here to tell you that doesn't mean it's the end of your story. Your story might have not even just begun, just like the widow's oil. Let's go deeper. So she's making these multiple reinvestments. But here's the thing that's interesting that we should all gather and understand, right? At some point when this comes to its head, right? When she decides to stop, we are going to get effectively what we might call her final returns. Okay? We're going to get what we might call her final returns. Okay? And this is the culmination. This is the accumulation of all of this initial investment being poured in and poured in and poured in. Let's do this in like a gold, like an oil, right? Being poured in and poured in and poured in and poured in again and again and again and again and again and again. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Samuel, I get this Bible story. I see what you're doing. And I see how you've gone from a Bible story to an illustration of how I can take my initial investment and make reinvestment number one. And I can take my initial investment and reinvestment number one and make reinvestment number two. And now I can take my initial investment and reinvestment number one and number two and make reinvestment number three. And now I can take all the culmination of all these investments and literally have some final returns. I get it, Samuel. But Samuel, how can I practically do this in my property game? And I'm so glad you asked. So let's start breaking this down. One of the first ways, let's use these reinvestments as examples. So one of the first ways, reinvestment number one, okay? One of the first ways, as a property investor, you might be in a place where you say to yourself, Samuel, I don't have that much. I don't know what to do, right? One of the first things you can do is what is known as house hacking, okay? House hacking. You might be like, Samuel, what is house hacking? I'm so glad you asked, right? So house hacking is the process of, the way I describe it to many of my students is buying more house than you need. Okay, buying more house than you need. That's house hacking. So an example of that is you might have the resources to buy a 2-bedroom apartment or a 3-bedroom house. But what most people would do is they say, oh, it's only a house for me, so I'm just going to buy a 1-bedroom. And they lose the opportunity to buy more house than they need. But here's the beautiful thing. If you bought more house than you need, you now have a seed, right? Because if you bought a 2-bedroom when you only needed a 1-bedroom, you now have a secondary bedroom that you could rent out. You could allow a lodger to stay. Now in the UK, lodgers allow you, like based on legislation, you can have a lodger allowing you to generate up to £11,000 a year without even paying tax on that money. Okay? I know someone's excited right now because they're like, yo, Samuel, is this for real? Yep, this is for real. For those of you who are like me, who are a bit more experienced in your investment, you've got a portfolio, you don't want to have someone living in one of the rooms in your house. That's okay. Let's go further, right? House hacking might be you saying, well, hold on a minute, I've got a family member who's looking at making some changes. It might be a parent who's getting old. And you're thinking to yourself, well, how am I going to take care of them? Well, why don't you move in with them and you go buy a bigger house that fits all of you guys? And in so doing, you generate some form of revenue from the parent who's able to no longer have to pay what they were paying for what they were paying for, but now they can contribute to what you're paying for. That's house hacking. It's any of these strategies, systems, or sequences that allow you to get more house than you originally bargained for. That's house hacking, okay? And when done again and again, when done well, when done strategically, house hacking can be a great way to level up your processes. Let's go deeper, okay? Let's go deeper. Reinvestment number 2, okay? What's another way that people can reinvest? What's another way that people can say, you know what, Samuel, okay, I've done this house hacking for a bit. I've made some money. I've built up my portfolio. I've gone from a small investment. I've now got closer to what might be considered a tall investment. But Samuel, what can I do next? Okay, I'm so glad you asked. Let's look at this, right? You could do what I call, okay, many people talk about this, but not many people teach how you do it properly. But what you could do then is you could do what I call adding value, okay? Adding value. Adding value is when you're putting money into something, but because you know how things work, you know that the money you're putting into something is going to become more money without you doing anything, okay? So this is what I call adding value. Now, for those of you who want to go deeper on this adding value idea, one of the things you can do is go and find my YouTube video, which I recorded some time ago, which is called Adding Value versus Restoring Value. Because many people out there, all these gurus, they teach that you can add value, but what they actually teach you to do is not adding value, it's restoring value. Okay, and we don't have time to go through that in today's session, but adding value is another thing you can do. Imagine if you have a house with a garage and you convert that garage into a bedroom. That's a bedroom that can now generate income for you. Even if you don't want to convert it with the 20,000 or 12,000 it would take to convert it in the first place, what would happen if you just rented that garage to someone who locally wants to park for free? Now that garage is generating you revenue. So that's adding value to you, okay? If someone's getting value, let me know you're getting value, right? So house hacking is one of the ways. Adding value is one of the ways. Now let's go to one that's really, really big. One that can really change the game for you, because we're getting to these bigger reinvestments. Let me give you one that can really change the game. And guys, please excuse me, right? Because I'm not a Picasso. I'm a Samuel I Can Win, right? So if my drawing is not that good, please forgive me, right? So that's supposed to be a hand, okay? That's supposed to be a hand, right? One hand, just like this, okay? So if one hand just like this, guess what can happen? We can end up having another hand, just like this, okay? And what do two hands doing that become? They become a high five, okay? They become a high five because this symbolizes partnerships and joint ventures. Okay, this is another way that you can scale up what you're doing in your property investment journey. This is another way that your investments can become reinvestments at high levels in your property investment journey. So this for you guys is 3 clear, catastrophic ways that you can apply this to your property investment journey right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. You can go from having what most people might call a small investment and literally start engaging in house hacking activities to give you your next reinvestment. Whether that be some of the strategies that we teach in our cash flow creation week, where you're someone where you're saying, well, hold on a minute, I can actually grab this property without owning it, like Dwayne did, okay? Or like many of our students have done. And that can allow you to go from having a small investment, an initial investment, to a person who now has house hacked your way to now adding value to a property. And from adding value to a property, that could take you to a whole nother process where you get to a place where you're now doing partnerships and joint ventures, and those partnerships and joint ventures are taking you all the way to this place right here where you're now someone who in your community people are looking at and saying, you know what, not only is that someone who I want to partner with, not only is that someone who I can see value in doing a joint venture with, but now that's someone who's walking around with some serious final returns. That's someone who's now walking around with some serious final returns. Now, guys, as we put together today's session, my team said, you know what, Samuel, some people are probably going to have some questions. So I said to them, you know what, let me know what questions you think they're going to have. So these are the questions that my team put together. Now, what I want you guys to do is literally vote on which question you want us to answer. And I think when they put this together, I had already made my decision. I was like, look, I would love to answer this question, even though I know I can't make that decision, right? It's up to you guys. But I'm going to read the 3 questions out, and you guys can vote by literally just putting in the chat the letter A for the first question, the letter B for the second question, or the letter C for the third question. So let's go through. The first question is, how can I start buying property with little money like the widow who had little oil? How can I start buying property with little money, just like the widow who had little oil? So if you want us to answer that question on today's session, just put A in the chat. The second question is, what are some easy ways, okay, not hard ways, easy ways to make a property nicer so it's worth more money? What are some easy ways to make a property nicer so it's worth more money? If you want us to answer that question, throw the letter B in the chat for the second question and we'll answer that one. And the third one is, how can I work with others to buy property together if we don't have enough money on our own? How can I work with others to buy property together if we don't have enough money on our own? That is C. So if you want me to answer question C, just put C in the chat. Now, the question I think I really want to answer is B, okay? Because I find so many people who end up joining our programs, joining our training, and they come and say, you know what, they did other training with other people, and this was one of the biggest mistakes they made. They went and invested in things that they thought were going to add value, but they didn't end up adding value. I've met so many people who have gone through that predicament, and I really find that predicament to be a challenging predicament, and I don't want that to be anyone's story here, right? So because of that, guys, I would love to answer that question, but you guys let me know which question you want me to answer. Now, as you guys vote your A, B, or C in the chat, you choose which one, A, B, or C. I'm going to share with you a quote that I usually share with my students to help them understand how I engage with these concepts and why the widow's oil means so much to me. And that quote is, if you live life casually, you'll become a casualty. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. If you live life casually, you'll become a casualty. And this is something I've been saying to my students for a very long time. And I want to share this piece of wisdom with you because I don't want you to be making the same mistake that I've seen many people make, which is living life casually, thinking, oh yeah, the government's going to rescue me. Oh yeah, you know what, someone else will figure it out. Oh yeah, you know what, I can get a great return on investment without actually learning how to find properties with a great return on investment. If you live life casually, unfortunately, you'll become a casualty. And I don't want anyone, especially people who are tuned into this session, I don't want anyone to become a casualty, which means I'm encouraging everyone to no longer live life casually. Hopefully that helps you as you make your decisions out here as well. All right, so we did have the questions up. We've got the questions up right now. I'm going to answer question B because I think that's going to be super helpful for everyone. And I don't think the votes have come in yet, unless I'm not seeing them. And team, if I'm not seeing the votes, let me know, please. But let's go into it. So what are some ways to make a property nicer so it's worth more money? Okay, so I'm going to answer this question. And here's the thing I want you guys to think about and consider as I share this with you. Okay, the problem with most people is most people are trying to make a property nicer. Okay, but the problem is, who are they making it nicer for? Well, most people are only considerate of what they want to do the way they want to do it. So unfortunately, they're trying to make it nicer for themselves. And therein lies the problem, okay? Therein lies the problem. If you are attempting to refurbish a property, add value to a property in order to sell a property or in order to rent a property, the first thing you have to understand is you are probably not your own target market. You're probably not your own target market. You may be doing this property for students. You may be doing this property for young professionals. You may be doing this property for people who are seeking the DSS or some form of benefit, right? The point I'm making is whoever you're doing it for, they're most likely not yourself. And if they are most likely not yourself, you making the property nicer for yourself doesn't work. It's actually counterproductive. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get out of your own way and you want to consider your target market. Okay, you want to consider your target market. If it's students, you want to consider, what do students need? What do students want? What would a student desire to have in their property? Okay, if it's, again, young professionals, same questions you need to be asking yourself. So if you want to think about the question, well, Samuel, how do I make a property nicer to add more value to and make it worth more money? The first thing is start considering the actual target market. Who is that property going to be aimed at in terms of them buying it or renting it at the end of this process of adding value, okay? The next thing is understand the difference, and this is something I shared earlier. You can go watch my YouTube video on this. Understand the difference between adding versus restoring value, okay? So some of you might be saying, Samuel, what's the difference between adding value versus restoring value? Well, a very quick way to understand it is this. If you buy a house and see the bathroom is a mess, and you buy it because the bathroom is a mess, and then you redo the bathroom, you haven't added any value to the house, okay? Now, I know there's going to be people out there who are going to argue with me. Oh no, Samuel, the house was 300,000 when I bought it with a bad bathroom, and I redone the bathroom, and now it's worth 315. I added value. No, you didn't add value, okay? What you did is restored value. Why? Because every other house on the street that has a good bathroom would probably sell for 315, okay? Adding value is where you take parts of the property, or you take aspects of the property, and you now create something that wasn't there before. And this is why we have a cash flow creation week, all right? Because we show people how to create cash flow, not how to restore cash flow or find cash flow. It's really about creating cash flow out of what I call resources and revenues that were hidden in plain sight, okay? So this is what we're doing. This is the difference. You start by considering your target market, and then you start going into adding instead of versus restoring value, okay? And now, after you do these two things, you've put yourself in the prime position to be able to start increasing the value, increasing the worth, increasing your returns on the properties that you have invested in. All right, now if this was helpful for you guys, let me know in the chat. This is going to bring us again to this simple slide. If you live life casually, you'll become a casualty. I think this is super crucial for all of us to understand. Many people don't have an idea of what this means. And guys, I want you to be someone who understands exactly what this means. All right. So we've just done the question for today's session. Pray that was valuable, super valuable to you guys. And now what I'm going to encourage you to do is get in your diary next week, Wednesday at 3 p.m. when we're going to have our next session, okay? Because in our next session, we're going to be talking about something extremely powerful. We're going to be talking about how many people gamble away the opportunities that are with them today, okay? I'm going to say that one more time. We're going to be talking about how many people gamble away the very opportunities that are with them today. And for those of you who want to go deeper, my team have literally just put the newest dates on for our next up and coming cash flow creation week. And if you want to be a part of our cash flow creation week that's coming up, you can go to the link in the description of this session, or you can literally go to the link that is right here on screen for those of you who are watching this on visual. So with that being said, guys, good day, God bless. It's been an extreme pleasure to add value to you guys, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next session. Take care and God bless. Let's go.